Don't sleep on Muspelheim. Just like in the previous game, you can do special combat challenges here that give you amazing rewards and also resources that are needed for many of the upgrades throughout the whole game. It also gives you a ton of hex silver, XP and 2 pretty strong armor sets, and it's just really fun content that makes you think of the combat in new ways. So I will tell you how to access the realm, what the rewards are, and also how you can complete all the final challenges, as it can be tricky. Good to note is that the video will not have any story spoilers. Of course, if you are enjoying Ragnarok, then totally leave a like to show your support, subscribe for more content like this, and let's go. Accessing the challenges in Muspelheim is not as straightforward as going to the other realms. You namely need 2 parts of a seed before you can partake in these Muspelheim activities. The first one is over here on the map, very early on in Svartalfheim. You likely already got it if you completed the In Service of Asgard side quest. And the second piece can be found in Svartalfheim as well, but that would be over here on the map. You can only reach it though a little later into the main story. So just continue with the main quest, and then at one point you will return to Svartalfheim. You will know when you get there, then return to Dragon's Beach, and then you will find a chest with the seed there. Now according to Power Picks, there's a third location for the seed, and that's in a main mission in Muspelheim pretty late into the game. Like, you cannot miss this chest, so if you did not get the seeds in Svartalfheim, you can get them here as well. I would argue though that it's way better to get them in Svartalfheim, because then you can go to the Crucible in Muspelheim way before this point. The start is pretty simple. There are 3 different arenas, all with 6 challenges. So going to these arenas and completing the challenges is the first step, which will also already give you the Undying Pyre's armor set, and I will touch more on that one in a second. Every time you complete the 2 challenges in one arena, a rune will disappear from the Nornir chest in the middle of the Muspelheim Crucible, so you have to do all the 6 challenges in those 3 arenas, then come back to open it, and then you completed the first part of Muspelheim, which will also give you a Chaos Flame. So now the second part opens up, and for this you need to complete 6 final challenges, and these are a bit more tricky to unlock. It namely depends on the order in which you do the different arenas. Let's say you start by going back to the first arena, complete a challenge there, and then after that you go to the arena next to it, which I will call number 2, and then the other one is number 3. So after doing number 1 and number 2, you are forced to return to the middle, because one of the final challenges is now waiting for you, and in this case it's the Endurance Challenge, which can be tricky because you have to kill 99 enemies, including some aggressive targets that are level 8. I got tips for each final challenge that I will share a little later. First, going back to how you unlock them, because the order in which you do the first 3 arenas matters here. And there are 6 orders in total, because after doing 2 arenas, you are forced to go to the middle. I made an easy guide after trying this myself, and here you can see that every order unlocks a different final challenge. So do one of these, then return to the middle, complete the final challenge, and then do another order. If you did the wrong order for a challenge you've already completed, or do you have trouble with a certain challenge, they can also reset the combination, and this will allow you to go back to the first 3 arenas and pick a different order. Now again, if you are stuck, need some tips, I got those in a moment, but first let's go over the rewards. Like, what are you getting here? Starting with the 2 armor sets, and then the very important crafting resources. The Undying Pyre set is really easy to get from that first part of Muspelheim, and I really dig the shoulder pads and the overall lava look. This gear set is all about the permafrost and immolation skills, where if you do not get hit, you build up this meter next to your health, and they can activate it with L1 and triangle for a powerful effect that is different per weapon. So with the gloves and the waist, you build up the meter 30% faster, which is pretty great, and with the chest, you get a shield the moment the meter is full. So if you then get hit, you will still be able to activate the powerful effect. Now in my experience, it's pretty easy to just immediately trigger it after you got the L1 and triangle button prompt available. So I'm not sure if you really need the shield. So especially the gloves and waist are great if you like to play around these skills. It feels kind of weird that the Surtur armor is a reskin of the Fortified Husk set that you can get really early on in the game. Like, I'm sure they could have come up with like a cool lava giant armor set set or something. Either way, the perk is very unique though. If you namely hit enemies during their attacks, you deal bonus damage. And I like the red visual effect you see when this effect triggers. Now the other two pieces give damage reduction during basic attacks and skills, which makes it even easier to just go ham on enemies and then you will eventually hit them while they are attacking you. It's a pretty fun playstyle, although I wish they would have given it more of a unique look. And of course, to upgrade these pieces, so we need resources, and Muspelheim is amazing for that. So every challenge gives you Divine Ashes, XP and Hex Silver, which totally adds up, but it's especially the reward for completing a final challenge for the first time that is really significant. 2000 Divine Ashes, more than 1000 XP per character, and 40,000 Hex Silver. Now, if you need a specific resource, you can farm the different arenas. The first arena, namely, always rewards you with an Asgardian Ingot and Smoldering Embers. The second arena will always give you Blazing Embers and Luminous Alloy. And the third arena always gives you Petrified Bones and Glowing Embers. And after completing all the final challenges, you can do these challenges as much as you want without being locked out, which makes farming a bit easier too. So how do you complete the final challenges? Well, for one, it doesn't matter which challenge in which arena you do to get the combination to unlock a final challenge in the middle. And actually, after the first part of Muspelheim, you unlock a third challenge in each arena. I don't think you have to do these to complete the final challenges, but I would still like at least complete them once, just to be sure, and it's of course a nice change of pace. After that though, you can just do the challenge that you find the easiest to complete to get to the final challenges in the middle as fast as possible. Like you see me do number 3 Rampage in the first arena here. I found that one the easiest. Use the wisps against the enemies to quickly take them out and immediately stun the ogre, so you can also use that against the other targets. In the second area, I found every challenge quite doable. Use the heavy attack kick with your bare hands or the sprint attack to very easily push the people in the lava in the ring out challenge, and you need the heavy axe throw for that annoying enemy that will be hitting you from afar. And for both Feed the Rift and Health Steal, I just quickly took out enemies with my Lunda build. I will leave a link to that video in the video description. And in the third arena, I always did population control because that's by far the easiest and fastest challenge you can do. You want to quickly nuke the smaller enemies that spawn, because then when the elite appears, you can just focus on that creature without having to worry that there will be more than 4 other targets close by. Both other challenges are also doable, but just take way longer, although they do make me want a co-op God of War game, but more on that in a future video. So do each order that you will see on the screen here to trigger every final challenge, but you will notice a steep power level increase as well during these fights in the middle arena. I managed to clear them all with a level 5, but then eventually level 6 Kratos. But if you have trouble, you can of course also come back later when you are more powerful, like no shame in that. So next to being as high of a level as possible, of course get the superior rest stone as well, and then you should be ready. Now let's go over some individual tips for every final challenge, the build I was using, and also the reward you get from completing it. I will of course have timestamps for each challenge as well in the video bar. For the endurance challenge, you again mostly want to make sure that you nuke the Frost Elemental Shield from the annoying high level raiders that will come after the first wave. I use the Blade Runic attacks for this. Like, they're kind of overwhelming at first, but the waves do get better over time. Use the wisps also here against the enemies by throwing them their way. And I use the Steinbjorn chest and 2 of the other Raven tier gear pieces for this one, and many of the other final challenges. I went in depth on how to get these items in a previous video that I will link to in the video description. Like, you can already rock this build before doing any of the Muspelheim challenges, so totally worth it to get a ton of health back easily and stay into the fight. Especially handy when fighting 99 enemies. So completing this final challenge will get you that chest piece from the Surtur set. And I actually used this armor during the Shield Breaker challenge, although I did switch back to Steinbjorn later on because the healing is nice here too. So for this challenge you have to kill 4 smaller enemies before you can damage the elite. So do that, but then you can still only take out 1 bar, after which new enemies will spawn that have to be killed first. This is the final shield for the Nornir captain though, but before he dies, the next elite enemy will already show up. So make sure that you focus on the Nornir boss first and kill that one as fast as possible, because having both bosses on the battlefield at the same time, it can be tricky. After he's down though, the fight is not that hard anymore, as you've of course killed a stalker a few times before. So when you can, make sure you do damage to the horns to drop it on the ground, and then it should be relatively easy to clear the challenge. You get a Muspelheim amulet for completing this one. The Ring of Fire challenge can be difficult if you do not pay attention to a few things. So you have a small circle where you can stand in, with the other parts of the arena being lava. And around the 1 minute and 30 seconds, that circle will be in the poison totem. So you want to make sure that your axe disables this as soon as you can, so you don't have to worry about the pretty insane damage over time. You can also just throw your axe there from moment 1, so you do not have to worry about the poison anymore and just go ham with different weapons. It's also smart to take care of the Wolver as fast as possible, as this enemy can become stronger the longer you wait. And I did do the stun grab here, but that is kind of dangerous because the circle will just move along, so then you will end up standing in the lava. I also used the Steinbjörn build here, which also gives more health back when doing the Fury Rage, and this lets you walk over lava. So I personally use this to complete the challenge. Doing so will give you another Muspelheim enchantment. Next up is Onslaught, which has you survive waves of enemies for 5 minutes, so also having the insane healing from the Steinbjörn set is amazing. This time the ring doesn't move, but you still have a smaller area, so I use the blades to pull the enemies towards me to finish them off like that. And at one point an ogre will spawn, totally stun it as fast as you can to grab it and then use it against the other enemies, and then you can also walk over the lava. Although make sure that you're not dropped in the lava afterwards, which happened to me. I found this one of the easier final challenges overall, and you get the wrist armor for completing it. There's also a phantom boss that you have to take out for one of the final challenges, which has some things that are worth knowing. I of course already killed some before this point. I spam the sonic arrows whenever they are available, and make sure to hit the X when the weak point is highlighted, which is during and after multiple of its attacks. So then when it drops down, you can very easily build up the stun to have the phantom eventually disappear, and then you of course have to focus on the pillars. I aim and then use the sonic arrows and then throw or hit with the X to very easily clear them out. And good to know is that every pillar you break will spawn in new enemies. So while I was able to take out 2 pillars during the first phase, it did mean that I had to deal with more regular enemies on the battlefield. So it's up to you. You can also per phase only destroy 1 pillar, so you have less enemies on the field at the same time. Because of course it's smart to take out these enemies before focusing on the phantom again. So then just repeat. I also use the Fury Rage here for health back and to more easily stun the phantom, and they should be successful and get another Muspelheim enchantment. Then final challenge number 6 is the boss rush, my personal favorite, as it gives us a nice way to fight many of the mini bosses and higher health enemies back to back. So for this I used my Lunda build again. Reminder, a link to that video will be in the video description, because here you want to deal a ton of damage, and using the unarmed combat, which then also applies poison, really helps because it also lowers the boss's level, which of course makes the overall encounter easier. And I switched up my cooldowns for multiple fights, like I only used my heavy runic attack for the Traveler, then for the Stalker I used my Hild of Daneslav relic to more easily apply the poison. So I had always something ready when one of the 5 bosses would appear. Like, there's no rush for these fights, you got all the time in the world. And in the end I was able to succeed because I also knew the moves from fighting these creatures before. And then bam, when you succeed you get the waist armor from the Surtur set. Of course subscribe for way more God of War Ragnarok content. A like on the video would really help me out. If you have any questions about the Muspelheim realm, let me know in the comments. And check out my previous video on the Berserker challenges that you totally want to do for some of the best items in the game. For now though, I will speak to you soon and goodbye.